Welcome to the Inside the Sales Playbook show, where on each and every episode, we dive into the actual sales processes, the plays, the strategies working for fast-growing teams today. No high-level overview. We get into the weeds of what some of the fastest growing and most successful sales teams are doing today to drive revenue and grow their business. And we've got not one, but two sponsors on today's show. The first, Inside the Sales Playbook, is sponsored by SalesKit. SalesKit takes the guesswork out of scaling your sales knowledge all on one great platform. No longer does your sales team have to look into a bunch of Google Drive folders, Dropbox folders, or have your sales knowledge scattered throughout the organization or stuck in the founder's brain. SalesKit makes it easier than ever for your team to access the sales knowledge that actually works so you can scale your team. Sign up for a free trial at getsaleskit.com. And we're sponsored by my book, Raise Your Standards, the definitive guide to building seven-figure sales. You can get a free copy of this book to help grow your sales, whether you're an entrepreneur, a sales leader, or a frontline sales contributor at getsaleskit.com/book. I'm your host, Mark Evans, and today I'm really excited for today's episode. Many of you know who follow the show or listen to the show know that I cut my teeth in the ultra competitive, very difficult, some would say soul crushing, but yet also so rewarding and so fun world of recruiting and staffing. And today, our guest here is an absolute dominant force in the industry, especially for my home state of Wisconsin and beyond. I'm here with Sharon Hulce. Sharon, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mark.
Awesome. Well, it's my pleasure.
I'm excited to have this conversation.
This is going to be a good one. So Sharon is the founder and CEO. She's also an author. She's also a TEDx speaker as well of the Employment Resource Group. In 2019, I just want to rail this off because this is some really cool stats that I found. In 2019, she was named the MRI. That's the Management Recruiters International. That's like the big organization in recruiting and staffing as the person of the year. And she was also inducted into the AEs of the decade, where she had billings of over 20 million. Man, I think that is such an incredible feat. And if you're not in staffing, it's very easy to look over that, right? Well, hey, we sell 20 million widgets every single year. But recruiting is such a difficult industry because it's one of the few industries where your product can actually say, no, I'm not showing up to work today, or no, I'm not taking that job, and do a logical thing. So Sharon, I can't wait to get into this and talk to you all about your sales playbook.
Fire away. I'm ready.
All right. Well, let's start first. I talked a little bit about ERG, but what is ERG? How do you help your clients achieve their mission, for anybody that doesn't know?
Yeah. So we're executive search. So we don't do anything on the contract staffing side. So we just do executive search. And we focus on our primary industries are construction, manufacturing, banking, credit union, and then any of the function-based roles. So IT, HR, finance, sales, anything that goes operations, anything that is a leadership role within any type of company. And I think that's where I think we specialize and do really well, is we understand from a very fundamental place who works well within an organization, who's going to integrate in, and who's going to be successful.
Have you always had that unique ability, or is that something that's taken time, experience to do so?
Well, I would tell you that I've always been really intuitive. My sister says, you're just like our dad. You're so intuitive. So I've always had what I call a really good spidey sense on, if it looks like a rat and it smells like a rat, there's probably a rat in there and I'm going to find it. So there's definitely that. But 25 years of doing this has certainly, it's done one of two things. So first of all, it's honed the skills on really getting to why people can be successful, and then also understanding what people aren't telling you. So, the things that make people work that leaders of organizations don't always understand how to articulate. I think the other piece is really, 25 years, I always say about 15 years ago, I lost my filter. So I am not scared to ask the hard questions anymore. And I really, I'm pretty direct with both our candidates and our clients in really getting to the win quickly.
Yeah. Do you think is that something that someone could start their day, like day one, or do you think that that's a learned skill that you need to have a little bit more like clout in the industry or more experience to back that up? Because I could imagine on day one to just go direct and like straight at the point, right, may get you into some trouble, or it may lead you to lots of success. What's your thoughts on that?
So I would tell you that I've always been pretty strong I mean, just my personality. And I started in construction. So I started in a male dominated industry when there was myself and one other female recruiter.
Wow.
And the interesting thing is, because I was so strong, but also I have this really dorky sense of humor, and I would make sure that I had my joke of the day and all that stuff. The guys worked with me because they liked me. They didn't necessarily work with me because, quite frankly, I screwed up so many times in what I was presenting from a construction perspective that now I look back and I'm so embarrassed that I did some of those things. But it was great learning, and I wasn't scared to ask the question, what does this mean? What does it mean when they're in the middle of a punch list, or all of those things that they would tell me? I would just ask over time, what does that mean? And becoming an industry expert, becoming knowledgeable about kind of what people say that make you think, okay, that really means something else. You do get better and better and better. And quite frankly, after 25 years, I still make mistakes. I mean, you will never, ever be perfect. Like you said, our product thinks, breathes, and changes its mind all the time.
Yeah.
So the reality is, because we deal with people, we also are human. We're going to make mistakes all the time. Do you get better? Absolutely. I mean, after you've been beat up so much by the same mistakes, you stop making those mistakes, right? You stop taking the shortcuts. You stop doing the things that are going to break your heart in the long run.
I really like that. And just for those that are listening or watching this program, Sharon, I know you kind of went over that, but I think there was a couple of really good nuggets, and one I just want to highlight. It sounds like you really worked to create and build rapport, whether, as you mentioned, right, it was hokey with the joke of the day, but building that relationship, it seems like you took a very intentional approach to building rapport and building relationships.
Yeah.
Is that something that you instruct your team or new recruiters or new salespeople to do as well?
Yeah. Absolutely. So the best and probably worst experience I had, I mean, I love MRI. I love management recruiters, but I worked for a very old school, got a guy, want a guy business.
Yeah.
And while I was very successful, it didn't work for me. It didn't work for me from a fundamental values perspective to not be able to see where the person sat, understand, the pace of how a company works, how people interact with each other. Are they loud? Is it quiet? Do they email? Do they talk? All of those things are what make people integrate in or not. So when I started ERG, I started under the fundamental premise that we would create an experience for both our companies and our candidates, so that if we went out of business, they'd go, oh my God, what are we going to do? We don't have our resource for great people. And we work tirelessly to make sure that people have a great experience. Now, do we fail sometimes? Absolutely. I mean, everybody does. But every time we fail, we learn something new about what does it mean to create an experience for a candidate going through what I wrote a book on, professional midlife crisis, or for the client to really have an experience with a search firm that's not transactional. It's not about the fee. I got to tell you, after $20 million in billings, it's not about the fee for me anymore, obviously. For me, it's about, am I helping people to find their life location, and ultimately our organization getting people to happy? Because at the end of the day, that's our number one goal. Is the candidate and is the client happy? And if they say yes, we won.
I love that. And I almost wonder if it's the chicken or the egg, right? Did that $20 million come because of that really close focus on, are we providing value? Are we creating an experience? Or was it, because we created this experience as the $20 million? We'll let the rest of the world and internet decide that one, but I really like it. Let's transition a little bit, Sharon, into your sales playbook. Really curious as to how, what are some of the tactics, some of the strategies that your team is using either to source candidates, if you want to talk about that, or on how you're going out and getting business. Because as I know, as I think a lot of other people know, there's no shortage of other recruiting firms in the industry, right? It's very easy to hang a shingle and say, hey, I'm the world's greatest executive recruiter. So how do you go about generating leads and business in your business?
Well, and it's interesting. I mean, I'm just going to be honest. I haven't made a cold call in almost 10 years. I mean, so we get a lot of our business by referral, which is awesome. But our process is what works. And I will tell you, so we're fully retained. and have been since 2002 when I started ERG. I haven't done a contingent search, nor do I intend on doing that.
Yeah. And real quick,
But
Sharon, just for those listeners that don't know, so there's two types of searches when it comes to executive
yeah,
recruiting. The first one is contingent. That means, hey, if we find someone for you, you will pay us a fee. And so that's one layer. I would say that that's an easier type of
right.
relationship to get in. A lot of organizations have many relationships like that with recruiters. But then the other one that a lot of firms aspire to is to be on that retained search, where they
Yes.
pay you a certain amount of money beforehand, before you ever find a candidate, or before you ever even they have an opening, to be like your recruiter on call, your strategic partner with that. So sorry, Sharon, I didn't mean
Yep.
to
No, and
but want to
thank
make
you
sure
for
everybody knew
clarifying that. You kind of forget after you've been so long, you forget the basics, right?
that. That's okay.
Uh, I would tell you that I think our process is what defines us and differentiates us in the marketplace. We spend an unbelievable amount of time on the front side of a search. So, we do a white sheet, obviously, must have desired characteristics, but I also want to know what's the win. So if we're sitting here a year from now and you go, oh my God, like that was the best hire ever, where'd you find him? I want to know what that is. What happened during that year to make you feel that way? And then we work it backwards. So every candidate has 2 interviews before anybody ever talks to them at our client.
Wow.
So the recruiters do an interview and they'll get all the industry intel, technical capabilities, all of that. And so we call that the good cop interview. And then they come to me. Guess what
Okay.
my interview is? And my interview is I do a lot of situational interviewing. I really drill in on, can that person get our organization to our client saying that was the best hire ever? And it's a pretty tough interview. If they get through me, it's likely that they'll like all of our shortlist. There's always the culture fit and the favorite, but I want to present a short list of candidates that all of them are impressive, and it makes the decision hard. And I think having a process, first of all, in executive search is critical. Most firms, they find a resume, they send it in and say, hey, take a look. If you're interested, great. If you're not, that's okay. I'll find someone else.
Yeah.
And that was the world I live in when I first started. And it never felt like I was just sort of, through some and did this. And I said, this is not a way to grow a business.
No.
And it's not a way to help them grow a business. Working with a search firm is an expensive endeavor. It is not inexpensive. And you have to get it right, because not only are they paying you, they're also paying for a person that, should this person not be a good hire, it's a lot of money that they could lose, not only from our fee, but also all the rest of it. So we go to great pains to really understand everything about that organization and what the win looks like. It's a lot of intuitive stuff on pace of work, how the leader is viewed. I'll give you an example of one of the things that I personally. So I go out and I visit every new client before we start a search, because I want to see the environment they're going to sit in. I want to feel the vibe. But one of my favorite things to do in manufacturing construction is to walk around with the CEO or president of the organization and watch how people react. Do they scatter? Do they, hey, Bill, how are you? Does the CEO engage with, how's Jenny doing today? How's the kids?
Yeah.
That tells a lot about the culture of an organization. Everybody's going to tell you their culture is great. And here's the thing. Nobody has a perfect company, including my own. I mean, there just isn't one, right? So the reality is, what is it that this hire needs to bring? What are the problems and challenges they're going to be solving coming into the organization? The more intel you can get, I don't care what sales game it is. I don't care if it's recruiting or any other sales organization I've been with in my career. The more you can get inside their head on what is it that this person has to solve coming into the organization, or what's the impact on the culture, the better you can be at helping your customers to solve problems and be successful.
Wow. That is such a good way to look at not just recruiting, not just trying to find a position for that, but just sales and life in general. Where can you add value? I really, really like that, Sharon. So it sounds like a lot of your business is referral, it's repeat, it's word of mouth. When it comes to, is that the same on the candidate side? Because that's a whole nother ballgame as well. How are you going about finding candidates these days?
Yeah, and there's no secret. I mean, everybody uses the tools and all the things to find candidates. I think because we do a lot of work on the front side of a search, we can eliminate a lot of candidates that just are not going to be a fit.
Yeah.
25-year database in a lot of our industries, certainly that helps, obviously.
Yes.
And a lot of the people, I mean, personally, I do the client side, and I have a team of people who do the candidate side. But I would tell you that the candidates that I'm working with today are people that I have known forever who hit that point in their career where they're successful, they're making good money, and they don't love what they're doing every day.
Mm-hmm.
And they know that I wrote a book about that. They've read the book and they call me and go, okay, you need to help me. And we
Yes.
counsel them through whether people think that automatically they have to look for a new job to believe passion and energy and love their work again. And that is not true. Sometimes it's course correcting within the organization that they're in,
Yeah.
and really understanding what are they missing, and then helping the senior leaders to understand what that could look like. So it's actually going in with a business plan to bleed passion and energy back in by doing something that's your life vocation and that you've always wanted to do right where you live right now. But if that isn't a case where they can do that, then we help them to look for what that would look like.
That's pretty incredible. So that's not traditional, right? Like that's something that most firms wouldn't even pick up the phone call or return a call on that. Like, you want more happiness in your job? Like, yeah, good luck, but I can place you X, Y, or Z here. So I really, really like that, Sharon. I think that's a really neat thing to look at. Now, has your sales process, has the recruiting process, how has that changed since COVID has hit and has really upended a lot of different industries?
No kidding. Oh my gosh, COVID. Interesting. So I would tell you the first time in 25 years, we placed a lot of people that they had never met face to face.
Wow.
Right? They did it just like this. They did interviews. I would tell you and this was something probably was good for me because I probably grown stale in what I do. I had to learn how to engage the customer without sitting right beside them, having that personal connection that I was so accustomed to.
Yeah.
I had to learn to build an emotional connection like this.
Yeah.
And it was interesting to go through that process, say March, April, May, when COVID first hit and all those face-to-face meetings went away and we had to go to doing it via Zoom or Teams or whatever mechanism we were using, to figure out how do you build a personal, intimate, emotional connection with technology without being able to, sit beside them, without being able to have that kind of that close connection person to person. And we really worked on that. We really worked on how do we make people still feel connected and special and heard, quite frankly, over a tool like this. And, while we're still getting better at it, I would tell you that we've come worlds from where we were March 19th or whatever it was, the day the world shut off and said, okay, now you're home.
Is there one or two tips that you could share with the audience, Sharon, on what you have learned over your experience over the past couple of months that they could maybe take and apply to their telesales or to their Zoom session sales?
I would tell you, and none of it's a trick that, oh my God, if I just would have implemented that one thing. But so much of it is really getting to know who people are as people. We do business with humans. We do people with dads and moms. We do people with people who have a big life over and above this, right? So for me, the more I can get to know about who it is that I'm engaging with, the better I can be when it comes to building that connection. So I want to know, do they like to read? I want to understand, what do they do in their free time? I want to understand their life, not just their work life, but their life. And by doing that, I'm able to tie what we do and how that impacts not just their career, but how does it impact their family life? How does it impact all of these different parts and pieces? And really what you said, Mark, is so true. It comes down to one thing. How do we add value? So for me, I said, what we do is we do search. Fine. That's not what we do. What we do is we transform the life of a person or a company one step at a time, one person at a time. So the company's life cycle is changed by bringing in somebody who's new in a leadership role who will impact that life cycle. All firms outgrow the early adopters, right? We all outgrow that early team, the A team who came in. As your company grows, you outgrow what their knowledge base is. So you have to bring in new innovation, new people to be able to continue the life cycle. the more I am able to understand that, even before that call, the more I can help them to start thinking about what does that person look like.
Yeah.
Same thing on the candidate side. It's really understanding if you are going to be sitting in their shoes and they've got 3 kids under the age of 10 and they play baseball and they're involved in soccer and all those things that impact not just their personal life, but their work life, and really help them to say, okay, so I know you have kids. I saw online that you have kids. I saw on Facebook that you've got little ones running around. Talk to me about the dynamics of what that feels like on a day-to-day basis, and how do you balance being, quite an interesting word.
Yes.
I always equate it like this. I say, listen, I grew up on a dairy farm. Balance in that world is you make hay while the sun shines. So
Yes.
when you have to be busy, you're busy. And when you have a little time for free time, you take advantage of that and you
Yes.
maximize that. That to me is balance. It doesn't mean I go in at 8 and I leave right at 5 o'clock and I can be a leader and I'm amazing.
Mhm.
That's not realistic balance. So I think a lot of what we did is we took extra special time to really get to know who is the person that we're going to be connecting with on the other side. And then from there, really talking about the things that changed during COVID and acknowledging that it was a change. A lot of them were scared. A lot of really good people got laid off because the businesses just took a hit terrible.
Yeah.
And then helping them to not just from a functionality go through it, but mentally go through this process and helping them to get out the other side. So I always say, if you're not a good advisor in a sales capacity, you're probably not going to be a good salesperson.
I agree with that. That's really interesting. It seems like a lot of it is rooted in empathy, where, hey, I empathize with where you're at, with what your current situation, and I'm curious enough to ask the questions to try to find out. So there's almost kind of like a double dynamic of curiosity that I'm hearing, and then matching that with an empathy for who you are as a person and how that's going to work with the company. Because, yeah, it really sounds like, hey, we're not just trying to fill, a square peg with a square peg here, but really trying to find what's the value add for your candidates in these organizations. I really, really like that. And obviously, Sharon, why you have been so successful, I'm sure just one of the reasons. Now, Sharon, I think this is a great place. I want to close with our final 5. So these are 5 rapid fire questions that I'll ask and you answer. Sound good?
Yeah.
All right. Don't get stumped. This is going to be good. So give me your favorite sales or business related movie.
Well, I would tell you that while I would never work this way, I still love The Wolf of Wall Street.
That because,
is, just some of the dynamics of coffees for closers and all those things. So it makes me laugh, right? So I still like that one.
It's a great one. It's a classic. Do you have a favorite sales or business book?
I like anything Mike Weinberg writes. I really like his stuff. I also obviously like my own because mine was written and it's my story. So it's really was written from my heart. So that's a well done professional midlife crisis. I wrote it through Forbes.
I love it. Well, I'll make sure that we link to that in the show notes as well, and where people can go and get a copy of that. Sharon, what do you know now that you wish you would have known when you first got into sales, first got into business, and started your own company?
I would tell you that in the environment that I was raised, it was a serious, all in, follow the metrics, and we lost sight of the human aspect. So while metrics are important and they absolutely tell a story, don't ever forget that you are better off to walk away from a sale than to at any given time do something that jeopardizes your integrity.
I really like that. Yeah, that is really, really good. Sharon, what's a favorite purchase of yours over the past 12 months? Under $100, can be business, can be personal, you name it.
Under $100, I don't buy anything under $100. Well, let me think. What have I bought that's under $100? I recently bought a piece of jewelry that was an estate piece of jewelry that I really I loved the story behind the woman who owned it. So I would tell you that probably that. And it wasn't that it's the most beautiful piece of jewelry I've owned. It was really the story behind this lady who brought it in and sold it before her death was why I bought it.
Sounds like, yeah, you're really into people's stories and where people come from in the history. I think that's
I love getting to know people from the inside out, not from the outside in.
I love that. Sharon, is there a favorite follow or executive or someone you're following along with or reading about, following their blog or maybe a podcast or something like that, that you'd really recommend?
Yeah, I love Simon Sinek. I think everybody probably watches him. I love Mel Robbins. I love Mel Robbins' candor. I mean, I
Yeah.
love that she's so direct, like, knock it off. Why are you doing this yourself? So I love Mel Robbins. Um, there's Tony. I mean, I love anything inspirational, motivational. So, and that's really just me. I'm an eye of the tiger, Rocky, all that stuff, right?
Love
So,
it.
yeah. So anything that's inspirational, motivational, I really like.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, some great recommendations there. Sharon, if our listeners and viewers want to connect with you, where's the best platform for them to do that on?
Yeah, so probably I would tell you LinkedIn for sure. Right? I
Okay.
mean, I'm on LinkedIn all the time, and have a lot of followers, and so I'm on there a lot. Sharon at ergsearch.com. Anybody can send me an email at any time. I am, one of the things that I had a lot of people who really, really helped me when I was young in this business, or just even had questions on how to go from contingent to retained and all that stuff. I am an open book. I'm more than happy to help anyone. They can send me an email, and I'm happy to take, 15, 30 minutes, whatever they need, and just help them to think through things. Sometimes it's just talking out loud, right? So happy to do that with anyone.
Awesome. Awesome. I really love hearing that. Your book, it can be found just about anywhere books are sold. I see it's on
Amazon, Barnes
Target,
and Noble, yep, all of those.
Amazon, all those places. Great. Well, Sharon, this has been an awesome conversation. That's Sharon Hulce with ERG. Sharon, thanks so much for taking us inside your sales playbook today.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. It was great. I really enjoyed it.
My pleasure.